Hello and welcome to Beyond the Slipstream. I'm Matt and I'm here with my brother Justin, and on today's show we're diving into the fourth season of FX's hit show The Bear, a show which we both love, and indeed you, Justin, had it at number 8 on your top 10 shows of the year list that you spooled out on this very show a mere week ago. As a restaurant lifer, this show hits especially close to home for me, and some of my best watching moments of the past couple of years in both TV and movies have been at the deft hands of the creators and stars of this magnificent show. It's been picked up for a 5th season, which is great news, for as we learned at the end of season 4, one of the show's main characters is about to make a huge life change. So stick around. Your reservation is about to be called, and this meal of a conversation begins tick, tick, tick now. All right, welcome to the show. We are diving headlong into season 4 of The Bear, a show we both love. You wanna set the table with a 60-second background of this show for folks who are not familiar with it, and I guess we should say like this is going to be a spoiler-filled conversation.
Definitely spoiler-filled. The Bear centers around a family, essentially. Really centers around a chef. Carmen Berzado. And essentially when we pick up the show, his brother has just died and he has come home to help run the family small time restaurant, which is a Chicago style beef sandwich shop. And it really kind of blossoms from there, and they expand. They open up a fine dining restaurant, which is really what his specialty is. And the show really centers around the dynamic between him, his family, and his employees, and their personal struggles with loss and life. And, everything in between. It's very, very well done. For anybody that's spent any time in restaurants, it has a very visceral appeal to, people that have done this work like both you and I have. I know it's been a long time since I have been in the restaurant industry, but it still rings true to me all these years later because, when I was in it, it was being a chef wasn't quite as glamorous as it's become today. In the last 20 years, it was really, the glamour was only starting to become, a celebrity type driven, thing. You know what I mean? When I was when I went to culinary school, you had Emeril and you had Bobby Flay, and that was about it as far as celebrity chefs. I mean, you had Wolfgang Puck and some of these other guys, but I mean, I'm talking about the TV chefs. You know what I mean? The people that you know what I mean? Chefing has become a celebrity event at this point. There are, from Jose Andres to,
etc. We're getting off track.
Yeah, getting off track. But that is essentially what the show is a look into the life of the Berzado family and their restaurant.
And we should say that like it is very, very artfully made. Like this show is got a super, super great way with incorporating music into the cinematography. In their montage scenes are really incredible, and they are also not afraid of making bold strokes, taking big risks, being very unconventional.
And they lean into the uncomfortability of life.
Yeah. I mean, they've had such episodes as Seven Fishes, which was an entire episode based around one insane meal that this family was having for the holidays. They also had another episode that just spent the entire episode right up close and personal with two characters, like right in their face. Almost the entire episode was just these two people in close up. And that's a bold stroke because there's a lot of choices out there for TV viewing, and for someone to choose to hang in for 40 minutes on a tight close up of two people, I mean, that takes an invested viewer. And they've certainly earned
Hmm.
those
Oh
types
yeah.
of big swings. And as we'll see at the end of season four, they kind of pulled off another one. Um, Pulled off a couple this season actually that we'll get into. So a fantastic show with some great stars. Jeremy Allen White, Eben Moss Baccarat, Io Debris are the big three in this show. Um, and some really great recurring turns from some other sort of cameo type folks. Jamie Lee Curtis plays the mom. You got Will Poulter coming in as the stage. Uh, a sad R.I.P. to Rob Reiner, who plays Albert Schnurr, the investor slash
Restaurateur type. Yeah.
yeah yeah Oliver Platt, of course, as Uncle Jimmy, as you like to call him,
Yes,
Cicero.
and I did look it up. It is Uncle Jimmy or Cicero is his name. So you were
Yeah.
spot on with that. But yes,
Yeah,
it
and you
is
got
Uncle Jimmy.
Robert Townsend sneaks in there as Iowa Debris'
Yes,
dad.
you know what?
Um,
You- that is one that I forget until I see him on screen. I'm like, oh yeah,
yeah,
her dad is Meteor Man.
and one that I meant to mention in the other one that we didn't mention when we first recorded this, John Mulaney is so good in this
Yes,
thing. He's
yes,
so
yes,
good. I
yes.
love him. You mentioned Odenkirk, phenomenal. Yeah, but just a bunch of hitters. Josh Hartnett turns up in this thing. John Bernthal, of course, plays
It
the
plays the
the
brother,
the
the
deceased
deceased
brother
brother.
at the center of the whole plot. So let's uh let's jump into it.
Don't forget Brie Larson, and makes
Brie
a
Larson.
big cameo at the end of the season.
Hmm. Hmm. Um, so yeah, so the season opens with a flashback of Carmi, Jeremy Allen White, pitching the idea of opening a higher end restaurant to his brother Mikey, who has since passed away. And this is kind of a huge reveal here because Mikey is there for it. Um, and it sort of clears up a lot of stuff from earlier seasons when you're like, man, this guy sure is dedicated to this project. But we now find out that yeah, because his big brother, who everybody respects, who everybody reveres in this family, he was all for it, you know. And
Well,
he can't really go around saying, oh, I had Mikey's blessing, but like he knew that he had it.
yeah, well, and the whole story really revolves around the loss of his brother and how how it affects everybody in that family and in the surrounding group of people, that interact with them.
Yeah. So, in the present, he's the restaurant has just received a review from the Chicago Tribune. They they criticize the restaurant. They praise the beef window because they're still operating a window that's like open during the day to sell like their classic beef sandwich. They never really got rid of it, which is super cool. I
The
love that
original
idea.
beef.
Yeah, the original beef of Chicagoland, I should say. Um, so yeah, so they get this crappy review, and Uncle Cicero, who is helping them finance this thing, his his uh his finance guy, computer,
Uncle
comes and says,
Computer.
look, this thing is not making any money. Like they either got to sink or swim here. Like we got to put an ultimatum. And so they introduced this time clock. They put this countdown time clock in the kitchen, which is just kind of sick and twisted, if you ask me. But they're putting it in. They're like, when this thing is done, you better be profitable, or we're shutting you down. So it just introduces this big temporal element, which has been a through line in this show throughout. I mean, famously when Richie gets to the kitchen at Ever, um, there's the clock on the wall and every second counts, like that's been so almost the theme of the show. Every second counts. Um, and so now you've got this other clock happening that's like looming over everything. Um, they realize that they're going to have to make some changes. They're going to have to get tough about this thing. And Richie makes his first bold move. He goes out and hires Jess, Garrett, and Renee from Ever, the place where he staged at in season 2, my favorite episode of the entire show. He brings them in. He's like, all right, we got to get this thing streamlined. The review said that the place is chaotic. The chaos goes away now.
There's one part about this scene that I forgot to mention when we first recorded the episode that got ruined. Was I think that I love how anytime they bring up something negative with most of them, they're like, "Oh, that's awesome," and they're like, "No, it's not awesome." It's always
Yeah.
like, like, "Oh, we've got 3 months left. Great." And they're like, "No, it's not great."
Yeah. Episode 2, they realize, all right, we got this ultimatum. We got to cut this budget down. The staff is unmotivated. Uh, they begin simplifying the menu, simplifying the components. They're like, we got to make some hard decisions here. Um, this is also when Sydney reads this article about this guy Shapiro opening this new restaurant, who apparently that guy's playing himself. That guy is a Josh Shapiro is a restaurateur. Um, uh, and then
I did not realize that.
Yeah, I didn't either. And then Carmi, um, Tina tells Carmi that he needs to visit Natalie and meet the newborn daughter and all that kind of stuff that he's been putting off. And he calls her up to apologize, and he sort of reveals to her that he might be losing his passion for cooking, and she sort of gives him a pass and tells him it's going to be okay. Um, this brings us to the third episode. Really fantastic episode. This is the scallop one, where it opens up with Sydney creating this scallop dish, which is sort of a plot driver, as we'll see. So they've they've had this they've had this come to Jesus where they're like, we got to simplify everything, and she comes up with this scallop dish that's like 4 components, and she works on it, and we get a glorious montage scene in the beginning of this episode, where the whole staff seems to have had this same kind of come to Jesus, like, we got to get serious. And they start like going about their jobs in like, how can I help? How can I help save this thing? And Sydney's is the crowning achievement. She makes this scallop. She asks Carmi to test it. He comes in when she's already there, like working away, and he's like, "Oh, what do you got here?" And she's like, "A new scallop dish," and he tests it, and he's like blown away, and he gives her that validation that she so craves from him, when he's like, "This is better than good," and it's going on the menu right away. Um, so big moment there.
Yeah, that was a big moment for her. And I think, that's definitely part of the journey of the two of them, is her somehow stepping outside of the shadow of Carm.
Right. So we also get in this episode this the Richie's idea come into fruition. He brings in his hitters from the other restaurant, and that restaurant was all about creating magical experiences for
Yes.
guests. And what do? Boom, he shows them, I still got it. Like, I can do this, just like I did it with the pizza over at Ever. Um, they find out that the family, when they were taking the reservation, the family is like, what was it? They were in town for a surgery or
I feel
some
like
kind
it
of
was like
medical
she was
procedure.
getting like cancer treatment or something like that.
Yeah, and like, they were only going to get one night out, and they were hoping that there would be snow in Chicago, because they were from some place where
Well, and they
they
were
don't
they
get
were
snow.
bummed that they couldn't get the beef. Like that was the whole impetus of that.
Right. It was the snow and the beef. And so they engineer this amazing this amazing thing at the end of their meal, where, number one, Richie orders up a beef sandwich. They make him one, and as he's about to walk it out to the dining room, Carmi says, "Hey, let me have it. Let me dress it up." And like, there's a little tete-a-tete between the two of them. Like, "Nah, I'm taking it out now. Like,
Yeah,
you're
there's
not
like
gonna
a
mess
tug
with
of
my
war.
thing." And and Richie has to relent and put his ego aside and say, "Nah, I'm gonna let him do it. I gotta I gotta loosen up sometimes. And so he hands it over. Carmi just cuts it into four pieces and puts it on the little blue and white piece of wax paper, makes it look authentic, but manageable for the four guests, and out it goes. And like they're super thrilled. Richie gets to say, "Look alive, people," as he's serving them this
Well,
low end
and
food
it
in their
also
high end
leads
restaurant.
into that great conversation that he has with the other guest. And was the other guest like a writer? Like, was that guy like, or is he just a random?
I can't remember. I can't
Anyway,
remember.
but there you have a great conversation that he has with where the guy's basically like he's like I was like right there in the moment with you and that was amazing and they have this great back and forth and he was like, would you like me to get you one of the beefs? And he was like, I've just been waiting, he's like, I've just been hoping that you'd ask me. And yes,
Yeah.
the answer is
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so the guy was just like so sweet. He was just
Yes, the
he
whole
just
thing
gave
was perfect.
he gave Richie every bit of validation that he deserved for for creating that whole moment. And then also you notice at the end of the scene, um, so he has that conversation after they've delivered the beef sandwich.
Right.
But what's still to come is this the snowy
Is the snow
miracle
thing.
outside where they brought in some like some sprayers, some like pressure washers, and it's cold enough outside that they can shoot these pressure washers and create some snow. And so they set up a few little they got their little outdoor tables that are used for the beef window, and they just make it snow on this thing.
And my this also this is the reason the culmination of my favorite line when they make mention about the girl wishing she could see snow. Richie goes, I got this. I got this. Thank you, Strayer College.
Yeah,
It's like the
yeah.
best line of the whole
So
episode.
great. So great. Well, and so they make it happen. And if you notice at the end of the scene, the family has come outside. They brought them hot cocoa out there and it's snowing and you can just see like it's just they're just so blown away. The guy from the table next door comes outside and he stops and he sees what's going on. He's just like, man, these guys, they are incredible. And he gets into his Uber and as the Uber's driving off, you can see him lean up, and who knows what he said, but I'd like to think that he leaned up and just like couldn't contain himself and was like, I got to tell you about what I just, you know what I mean? Like he's ready to talk about it
Yeah.
because he's so touched. I mean, what a great episode. Um, and we also get a little Carmi and Claire in this
Yes.
in this episode. A lot of plot stuff happening here. Carmi goes and sees Claire, and she kind of establishes a boundary with him. At the same time, you can see that there's still fondness returning. Um, this is also where Rob Reiner comes in as Albert Schnurr, the investor, where Ibrahim, who's now just like his thing is the window. Now he's running the beef window during the day.
Because
He's got ideas.
he didn't want to be part of the restaurant. Like he didn't want to not do the beef.
Yeah, he tried it. And he tried doing the high end thing earlier, and it just really he realized it wasn't for him. That he's the beef window kind of a guy,
Yeah.
not a cranking out high end food kind of a guy. And also, as he proves here, he's got a mind for the business side. He's not so much into the artisanal part of it. He wants to run a business, and he reaches out to Albert Schnurr as a mentor. And Schnurr immediately sees the potential because Ibrahim lets loose with all of the numbers.
Yes.
He's giving this outside guy a peek at these numbers, and the guy's like, "Wow, you got something here." Um, and so that ball starts rolling. This idea of franchising the beef window. Um, and at the very end of the episode, well, you also get Marcus asking for more firepower on the dessert area. Because he is feeling the pressure. It looks like he's being real creative, but he needs help. Um, and Carmi is, yeah, I'll take care of you. I'll get you what you need. I message received. And then Carmi calls Pete to ask him to update the partnership agreement
Yes.
at, at the end of the episode. And Pete is Sugar's husband, who's like the lawyer
Right.
of the place. Episode 4. This is where Sid starts off, this episode starts off with her visiting the new space that Shapiro's got lined up for her, and he basically tells her, "You're gonna have carte blanche, baby, like full autonomy. You can hire who you want. The menu can be what you want. I will even give you money to get like a training program going that is like really robust, so you can like build your team from the ground up and make sure that they all have the skills they need, etc."
Right.
Um, a, Essentially a perfect opportunity that any young rising chef on the make would be looking for, right? The dream opportunity.
For sure. And the you know, it's the ultimate like exactly what you want. Look at like I've your dreams can come true. Like
Right. Almost
anything
too
you
good to be
want.
true.
It huh?
It's almost too good to be true.
Yes, yes. But it's just like everything he shows her is is exactly like you're like, "Oh my god, this is perfect. Is this going to be a hearth? Are you building a yeah, oh yeah, wood-fired pizzas, whatever you want." Like,
Mm-hmm. Um, so she leaves there and goes to get her hair done from her cousin, and we get this just incredible set of scenes play out where her cousin's doing her hair and they're bonding, and the cousin, whoever plays that cousin, is so good. Like she's just so funny, um, and she's really, she's really a very has a very different personality than Sydney, but you can kind of tell that they got history. They're
mhm,
cousins and stuff like that. And she's got a daughter, and she like runs out of the hair weave supplies or whatever, and has to run out and leave Sydney with the daughter. And Sydney seizes the opportunity to try to work through this dilemma she's now having over whether she should leave the bear or not, because she hasn't told anybody. She hasn't told anybody about it, but she really wants to work through it. And so as her little, second cousin starts opening up to her about some issues she's having at school, Sydney starts opening up back and creates this great metaphor of a sleepover to help her work through this thing. And it's a really, really beautiful episode. And this is, as you pointed out, one that was written by Io Debris,
yeah,
who plays Sydney, and Lionel Boyce, who plays Marcus.
yeah.
They're the writers of the episode. So
And
really,
and as happens in this show, there's you get these great, very personal cooking scenes where she cooks for they go out, they go shopping, they talk, she cooks. Just like when later on in the season, Carmi's going to cook for his mom, and there's you have these scenes where they use the the joy that cooking can bring, how it can bring people together, how
yeah, and
sharing
also and
food
also how
is
one
so
person
important.
cooking, that like that particular act of service where one person cooks
Yes.
food for another person, it's like a very deliberate sort of act. And I mean that's, in this show that goes all the way back to like, remember when Sydney cooked the omelet for Sugar that
Yes.
one time, and it was just like so amazing. And once again, it's simplicity. It was like the simplest little thing.
Yep.
I love making omelets for my gals. Um, awesome scene, and at the end she seems resolved to go ahead and leave, and so she calls Shapiro and says she's ready to discuss the paperwork, right?
Yep.
So episode 5 finds Carmi attending an Al-Anon meeting, and he is really moved by somebody telling a story about her own brother's addiction. um, Carmi drops the new partnership agreement on Sydney, bringing her in as a partner. Um, we're introduced to Chester, Marcus's roommate, who is a real estate agent, is helping him sell his house. And Carmi makes good on his promise to Marcus to get him some more firepower, and we have the return of Luca, played by
Will
the
Poulter.
gorgeous Will Poulter.
God.
And he comes in as a stage. He's just like there to help, and we love this about him, that he's totally just like seems egoless. He is just such a good dude. That's like what you love about this guy. He's such
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good
yeah,
dude.
yeah, yeah.
Just straightforward and honest, hardworking, loves to create, loves to be creative, and I love his presence in this show as like a just like a positive force from the high end world.
And in a way, it's like it's like he rounds out this team. It was like, oh yeah, we need, like giving him, like, there's nobody else that could have come in to help him that you would have had the same reaction from. Because the episode where he went to Stockholm and worked with Luca in, I think it was in season 2 when that happened, was a, it was a really neat episode because it was really, a part of Marcus's growth. And and that's the big thing about this season for me, is that this whole season is about growth. It's, self discovery, and the triumph of figuring out who you are in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. The story arcs for all of the main characters in this thing are just like so thoughtfully rendered. Um, so good. In this episode, we also sort of get the storyline with Tina struggling to kind of keep up, and wanting to reduce the number of ingredients, urging Carmi, like, slow this thing down. He takes that momentum and reveals to Sydney that, like, I was wrong, man. Like, this whole, like, changing the menu every single day, it's too much. We're gonna have a set menu, and
The greatest hits.
the centerpiece is going to be that scallop that you just put out. um and uh and we're going to do the greatest hits. um at the end of the episode, Sydney's dad has had a heart attack, and
Yeah.
she's rushing off to the hospital. um Gets to the hospital. Happens that Claire is there, on the nursing unit there. And after checking in on her dad, Sydney kind of breaks down to Claire, and just talks about how all of her anxieties, and the fact that she doesn't feel like she's being a good daughter, and not giving her dad the attention that he needs. um we also start to see Richie's insecurities about his ex-wife and her husband, and how her husband's moving in on his kid,
Yeah.
and he feels like he's going to lose touch with his daughter now that they're getting married, because their wedding is coming up. And
He has that great conversation with the expediter, that's like, she wanted this really expensive, stuffed animal, and I said no, and then he bought it, and they're like, that's a felony.
mhm, mhm. Yeah. So he's stressed out about the wedding coming up. You got Albert suggesting to Ibrahim the idea of the franchise. That's like where it first came, because Ibrahim was just like looking for a guy to help him, like, make the business run better. Um, Schnurr sees the potential and introduces this franchise window. Um, and then what
Which really
else?
does make them a ton of sense. Like, he's like, you're doing really, really well. What you need is to get bigger by being smaller. And, like, I just love the dialogue between the two of them in those scenes. It's so creative, man.
Yeah, for sure. Um, both Carmi and Natalie are also stressed out over this wedding, for their own reasons. Carm because he's going to be in contact with Claire, um, and Natalie because she is in this
Because
has been in this.
Francie Fack is going to be
Yeah,
there.
she's been in these her this lifelong, not lifelong, but extent protruded battle with this woman who she was once friends with,
Her best
which,
friend. It was
yeah.
her best friend. And they had a falling out, and they have been essentially frenemies for years and years. And they avoid each other like the plague. And we are now finally going to meet Francie Fack, which
Yeah.
makes her, I guess, a cousin in some way. So she was her best friend and her cousin. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know how the.
Well, I think her actual name is Donna.
Hmm,
um
isn't it Francie Fack? Here, I'll double check it.
Oh no, you're right. I think you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
Francie
Francie
Fack. You're
Fack.
totally right.
Yep.
My bad. Donna's the mom.
Yes.
Um, so that brings on the wedding scene, which is like just one of these, yet again, one of these great episodes. The show is so good at executing, and you just get a series of interactions between different characters that sort of aren't normally talking to each other in this show.
Correct.
Um,
The first
because
of
of
which
this.
is the one in the kitchen with Bob Odenkirk, where you actually find out that where Carmi relays the fact that he was at his brother's funeral, which up until this point, I don't think we knew that he was actually there. And because it's always been stated that he didn't show up for the funeral.
And Odenkirk, the last we saw him was at that family dinner.
The
This
seven
guy only
fishes,
crops up
yeah.
at the big
Mm.
family events here, and he seems like a dickhead,
Yeah, he seems like an
but
asshole, like
but
for
he
sure.
reveals himself to maybe not be quite the asshole that we thought he was in that particular conversation with Carmi.
Right. And he saw Carmi at the funeral. He's one like the one person that knows that Carmi was actually at the funeral.
Right. Um, he also reveals that he and Mikey had gotten friendly with each other.
Yes. And he
He
was
he had a
really taken aback by that whole thing.
hmm And this is he also kind of lets Carmi know, like, because Carmi's stressed out. I said she was stressed about seeing Claire at the wedding. He was really stressed about seeing his mom.
Yes.
That's who he's really got this. He's got mommy issues big time, and uh, and his uncle Lee also tells him, like, your mom's been working on herself. Like you need to stop pushing her away. Like, she's trying, which kind of gets the wheels turning in
Yes.
Carmi's head. There's a beautiful scene between Sydney and Donna, the mom, Jamie Lee Curtis, where Sydney is like kind of telling her, like, your son is amazing, like, like, because everybody just have these opinions about him, and he's such a troubled, stormy, you know kind of guy, and awkward and everything. And for Donna to be hearing from one of his peers, oh, he's amazing. Like, he's so good and he's so talented. I mean, he's like one of the best chefs on the planet. Um, and so it's sort of revelatory for her as well. Um,
And then you get the amazing scene at the end where
well, before that, you get Richie and Frank, you
oh
know,
yes, this is true. This
which
is
is
true,
like
yeah.
another one of those conversations where you're like, it's like all these people, these are not people you were used to seeing coming in contact with each other. And to Richie's surprise, Frank does not seem like this totally put together, because but prior to Richie talking to Frank, he's talking to somebody else and they're looking around the house like, good Lord, this is ridiculous. How much money does this guy have? Like, it's because
Right, right,
it's an
right, right.
outrageously nice house. Like, this guy's like living in this absolutely gorgeous, like, massive, brownstone mansion or something, it appears. And like, the material wealth on display is a lot. So Richie's just like, oh geez. But then he starts talking to the gorgeous Josh Hartnett, portrayed Frank, the soon-to-be husband of his ex-wife, and he realizes, like, Frank's more stressed out over his daughter's situation than you are. He's like, here he was worried that his daughter is gonna abandon him for her new daddy, and it turns out new daddy is like, I don't think she's ever gonna love me. I
As
don't think
much
I
as
have a
she
chance.
loves you, yeah.
Yeah, because she loves you so much, man. You're so important. And that just like completely is a complete level set for Richie. You know what I mean? Like, he's got this entirely new perspective on this situation, and almost in the course of one conversation befriends this guy that he was
Mhm.
just like so worried about. He realizes, wait a second, like, if this is a guy who if I team up with this guy, like,
My
that's
daughter
going
is
to
going to
give
be
my
great.
daughter the best possible chance. So huge
And
revelation.
they get together and help the daughter, with the fear thing.
Right, because that's what this whole thing spins out
Yes.
into, is guess who else is stressed out over this whole situation? The daughter,
Yes, because she
right?
doesn't want to dance in front of everybody.
Exactly. And so that is the thing that facilitates this beautiful set piece of a closing scene for this episode, which is the under the table scene where the daughter is gone and hidden underneath the dining table. And
The biggest
um
table
s-
ever, apparently, by the way.
right, right. So slowly but surely, uh, you know, I think I'm pretty sure Richie and Frank are the first ones
Yes.
underneath there trying to help her out. And then one by one, all the family members begin poking their head underneath there, like, what's going on under here? And they just keep coming in and keep coming in. And it's somewhat unlikely, but
Yeah,
uh
but you end up with, I think you end up with Sid, with Carm, with the Fack brothers. You end up with Francie Fack. You end up with Sugar is under there.
yeah, yeah. Richie's there and um
Does John
uh
Mulaney also end up? Yeah, I think John
I think
Mulaney ends
so.
up under the
Mulaney ends
table.
up underneath there. The the lawyer husband
Yes,
of
for sure.
Sugar's husband. Like, yeah,
Frank
the whole family
or
is on there. Like all the important people,
yeah.
they're all under there. And like they decide, somebody announces that, oh, the reason we came under here is because the little daughter is afraid of the dance. And like, you know what, we're all kind of scared of stuff. So let's go around the room and say something that we're scared of. And they all kind of in their way put things out there, some more than others, but just an absolutely magical scene. The whole reason why we come to this show,
Yeah.
you know, it's it's so good. At the end, um, uh, Natalie and Francie finally put their stuff aside and reconcile at the end of the scene,
Which is a very
and
beautiful scene too.
yeah, absolutely beautiful. And then at the end, Richie heads home. He's alone, but he's happy. It's like you can see it all over his face that he's
Hmm.
just like, wow, this is nowhere near as bad as I thought it was going to be. Because earlier in that episode 3, after that beautiful set piece where Sydney was making the scallop, there was a quick little scene of Richie on the phone with his ex-wife, and she's like, "You're coming to the wedding, right?" And right as she says, "You're going to be at the wedding, right?" He's like, I got to take this. I got to take this. I'll talk to you later. And he just very, very obviously does not answer that question. And it's not so much the wedding. It's his anxiety over like this
What
new
it means.
situation
Right.
that is emerging in my life, and I don't want to deal with this. And he leaves that wedding like, oh, this is going to be all right. You know what I mean? Now I can get back to focusing on this restaurant, which is what I really, really need to focus on. Um, Beautiful end to a beautiful episode.
It's also
Um,
he's also hasn't let his daughter and ex-wife come to the restaurant yet. That runs throughout the season as well.
that is true. That is true. Yeah, yeah. He had been sort of purposely keeping him
Yes,
away.
until
He,
it was
with
ready.
right. And they kind of force the issue right there,
Yes.
and they catch him at a moment where he's feeling good and he's like, yeah, yeah, we got to get you in there as soon as possible. Um, the next episode opens with Sydney calling Shapiro because after her conversation with Donna, she realizes, as she's praising Carmony to Donna, she realizes like this is where my destiny lies. Like I need to be here. This is where my heart is, and I still believe in this thing, and you know I got to stop entertaining this other notion and start focusing on what I
Yeah.
need to do because like tick 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 that clock keeps on ticking. So she calls Shapiro and declines his offer. He's not happy about it, as I think he is well within his rights to not be happy about it. Because she's been stringing him along all these months, making him think that it was going to happen. He tells her, you're really doing yourself a big disservice here. But she's made her decision. And uh that's kind of ends that storyline.
Yeah. It stops because she recommits herself to the bear.
All right, so then you get um that scene between Richie and Jess where he reveals to her how he was best friends with Mikey, and that sort of just sets up a very tantalizing possible romantic connection between those two characters
Because they definitely
moving
have chemistry.
forward.
They definitely have chemistry with each other. I mean, there's no doubt that like she's there because of Richie.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, and she gets him, and as put together as she is, she's also like she's working class like him.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So they're a really good match. I'm gonna really enjoy watching that flower if in fact that happens.
I hope it does.
Um, we get a little more in this episode of Tina struggling to meet this pasta, this 3 minute pasta prep time, and Luca comes in to help her to get her head straight, and tells her like she's got to harness that pressure, like or gamify it or whatever. Um, we get computer coming in and put turning the screws on Natalie like
Big
about the
time.
finances,
Yeah.
and has her questioning whether it's even worth saving. And she kind of pushes back and realizes, nah, this is my family for better or worse. You're damn right, it's worth saving. Um, and at the end of the episode is when
Because he
Carmy
just
shows
he
up on
can't
Donna's
he just
door.
doesn't understand it because he's purely analytical. He only is looking at the fact that it's like, you're like the best you're ever going to be is treading above water.
Right,
Like
right. He's just
what
looking
is the
at it.
point of this?
Right. He doesn't see the fact that all these misfits have found a place where they can be employed and they can be themselves, and they can strive. And yeah, you're right. He doesn't get any of that. All he sees is the numbers. Um just probably why he's, probably pretty good at what he does.
Yeah.
Um
I mean, obviously, Jimmy keeps him around for a reason. So, like, I think that reason is, he's good with the math.
right. Right. So at the end of the episode, Carmy shows up at Donna's to drop off the family photo album. Um and then the next episode starts with him sticking around. She tells him she wants him to hang out, and he doesn't he go upstairs and he's like looking through like his old bedroom. I feel like he finds a green sweater, and wasn't there a reference to a green sweater? Like was it Claire that was like,
It's like a
hey,
sweatshirt.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like he finds it in the closet and kind of takes it down and looks at it. So I imagine that little thing will
Was
come
it?
back at
Yeah,
some.
maybe it was that she was convinced that he had it and he was like, I don't have it, and then he found it.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Um, but ultimately, um, he sits down, and he starts talking to his mom, and she breaks down to him, and she, takes ownership of the fact that she was a shitty mom, that she was an alcoholic, that their family was just chaos, and she she just opens up to him, and she says that she's been sober now for a year, and that she wants to be a part of his life. And he's been on this journey himself, and he's been making all these strides, and realizes like, maybe I can let her in. um and that leads to yet another one of these beautiful, one person cooking a meal for another person, and he decides that he's going to make her a beautiful meal.
The
He makes the
Tanada.
roast chicken. No, he makes the roast chicken
Oh,
that he
that's right.
learned
That's
at
right.
the
That's right.
at the
But they
French
have the
Laundry.
conversation about the Tanada.
Right. Yeah, yeah. She does he ask her like what's the best meal, or does she just kind of offer up that, oh, one of the
I
best
can't.
meals
I
I
can't
ever had
remember
was.
exactly how it goes. I tried to rewatch everything again, but I only got through about half of it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The tonado is the dish that she was describing to him. She
Right.
couldn't remember
From
what it was called, and seemed so strange and exotic to her. And he was like, "Oh yeah, tonado, right?" And she's just like, "Oh, of course, my genius son knows that." Um,
and she does a
and
great job. Like she really, really is good in this. Like you buy her wholesale, man. Like she is exactly what you want in this role.
Yeah, absolutely. She's so good in this thing. It's like she got that whole she I think she won the Oscar for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I could care less about that movie, but like she's so good in this. I thought she was just silly in that movie. So he makes her this meal, and of course she is just like so tickled to be getting, because now like Sydney just told her like he's like one of the top chefs in the world. Like there's very few
Yes.
people that can cook as good as your son. And now here she finds herself having a meal lovingly made for her by an absolute rock star, and she's just loving it.
Well, and I also think that part of it is that like she has been craving this interaction with her son for so long. And, you know, part of obviously like the arc of the last, 3 seasons has been that, he distanced himself after the death of his brother, and all of the weight that brought on the family. And so, there has to be a level of excitement for her that she's finally like connecting with Carmi, which is something that she's been so desperate to do for 3 seasons.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So a couple of other story arcs get pushed along in this episode. Ibrahim and Albert like solidify their partnership, and they bring Computer into it, who is like loving it because, as we just discussed, he's a money guy, and
Yes.
whereas he sees nothing, he sees no money in the bear. He sees lots of money and lots of opportunity in the beef. I mean,
And the
he's
beef,
you know,
yes.
yeah. So,
The
um,
beef, in fact, he has stated on more than one occasion that the beef is the only reason that the restaurant's still open.
right, right. So then you get Luca casually telling Tina, "Hey, why don't you do a tester version of that pasta dish?" Um, because he's seen the growth that she's experienced since he urged her to start, getting tough, and she cranks it out in 2 minutes 59 seconds, and is quite pleased with herself, and they're all kind of happy for her. And then Natalie gets the phone call from Food and Wine magazine, um, and comes out to the kitchen. Everybody's like in that like really kind of good space out there in the kitchen. Um, and they're all there, and she's like, "Hey, I got a little announcement to make." She has to break in because everybody's just like,
Right.
just feeling so good with each other. And she announces that Food and Wine has chosen Marcus as their one of their class of best new chefs, and everybody's just like thrilled. I thought it was going to be Sydney, but it was Marcus. Um,
But I like it so much better that it was Marcus.
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, and then um, at the end, Pete calls up Sydney and tells her that Carmi, from an earlier episode, has written himself out of the updated partnership agreement. So she's like, "What?" Like she's gobsmacked. And of course, this sets up episode 10. Um, so he says that Carmi's out, and that it's her, Natalie, and Cicero are now the three partners of this restaurant. But the clock is still ticking. That might not mean anything because the clock is still ticking on this thing.
Well, and
But
she's
she
definitely
realizes,
kind of pissed about the whole thing because, like, if he's out, like, she stayed because of him. Like, that is very much was her reasoning for staying, was to be around him. And so, she just threw away this other opportunity, and it's like, and now he's leaving her. And so that is her panic, is like, he's leaving her.
yeah, because I mean, she has been fixated on him for years because she's follows, the culinary world, and she at some
Yes.
point tells this story about how when she first got into food, she like saved up her money for months and months so that she could go and have dinner by herself in the restaurant where he was the chef. He had no idea or whatever, but she went up there and she ate everything, and it was like a life-changing experience for her. So the
Was he the
idea.
chef or the sous chef at that time? I feel like he was like the sous chef when she did that.
Yeah, maybe she was the sous chef, but he was the hot young guy,
Yes.
and like she wanted to eat this guy's menu, and she went up and she paid through the nose for it, but she got to do it, and it was this life altering experience for her, and now she's gotten to work with this guy, and he has represented for her stability. I mean, like to her, this was the pinnacle. Like she had reached the mountaintop, and now these these other ideas are being introduced into her worldview. She got to where she wanted to be, and she was secure, and he represented like security because he's always going to be the one there at the top taking the heat, and she can just like, as long as she's good to him, she don't have to worry about anything
Right.
else. And now Shapiro's come in, he's introduced this whole new idea of like, no, you could be the superstar, like, and she's so
You are the
scared.
superstar.
And now Carmi's leaving, she's turned down, this superstar position from this other guy. And then Carmi turns right around and says, "No, no, no, you're still going to have to be the superstar." And she's thinking, "No, I already, I already got out of that. Like, I don't want to be that." And whether she likes it or not, destiny is calling.
Oh yeah.
And that sets up episode 10, which is once again another huge swing, an entire episode that is a conversation basically between three people uh, on the back porch where everybody goes to smoke behind the restaurant. And the entire scene takes place out there. It begins with Sydney confronting Carmi over this decision.
Yes, and
Um,
asking for a cigarette, which is so funny. He's like, "You don't even smoke."
right. And Carmi starts to explain to her, this is the best decision for the restaurant. I've done a lot of thinking, and I'm realizing that the whole reason I'm in this whole thing is because I've been running away my whole life, and I can't run away anymore. Like I need to go, and I need to see what I'm like outside of this whole restaurant setting. He tells her, like you're doing this for the right reason. You have a love of food. This is in your
Yes,
bones. You're the person that should be doing this, not me. I'm broken, and I'm doing this for all the wrong reasons. And if this restaurant is to have any hope of survival, it's with you, not with me. And it's really putting her in an uncomfortable place, you know um and as this is all playing out, they're interrupted by Richie. And she tells him what's going on. Like he's like, what the hell are you two doing out here? What are you talking about? And she's like, oh, Carmi's just decided that he's leaving the restaurant. And at first Richie's like, yeah, fine, whatever,
yeah,
whatever. We
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need, because he's denying his true feelings. But then like they 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 break through because Carmi reveals to Richie that he was at Mikey's funeral. But he came there, but he couldn't
He
bring
couldn't
himself
face
to
it.
actually attend. Um, and they finally, the two of them, have a heartfelt conversation, you know, and air it all out.
That needed to happen. I mean, they had the
Yeah.
conversation that they even needed to have happen for 4 seasons.
Yeah. The conversation that's been brewing ever since the screaming match through the walk-in door,
Yes,
when Carmi got locked in. Um, and this is all playing out in front of Sydney. Um, and they get through all their resentments, and Carmi reinstates to Richie, like, I got to go find out who I am, man. I got to get out of this kitchen. My story doesn't necessarily lie here. Um, and Sydney makes just the power move of all power move. I just love it so much. She says, you know what? I'm not doing this unless you give Richie a partnership stake as well, which is just such a cool move. And
hmm
it just sort of like completes the circle for Richie. It gives him the final piece of the puzzle where it's like, yeah, now you're invested. And he realizes it in the moment. And he's like, it would be an honor to be a partner with you
chef.
on
It'll
this
be an
thing.
honor, chef.
Yeah. So awesome. And then right at the end, Natalie arrives, and she's the one that told him several episodes ago, you know what, it's okay if this is not your passion anymore. So
hmm
she's already ready for it. And the episode ends with the clock reaching zero. And what's going to happen? Because, now you got computer has suddenly like, wait a second, there might be a way out of this thing. You know, there might be life after death here. So it's a perfect setup.
It is, and the whole season, really to me boiled down to the growth of the restaurant. Essentially, Carmi letting go of this need to like use the restaurant to push himself further and further, and realizing that the restaurant's success can only happen if he steps back. Richie's growth, is in both the work side, which helps with the personal side, which then helps with the work side again. Sid's growth from coming out from behind Carmi's shadow. Um, you know,
I cannot wait to see how all of this plays out.
yeah,
Like it's just so tantalizing for every one of these characters. Like, where will they be at the end of the next season? Like, it's gonna be so great. I hope they all end up well.
yeah.
So
I can't wait for the next season, man. I just think I want that. I want the season of good for everybody. You know what I
yeah,
mean? I
I
want to
I hope so.
see it all, like all of this turmoil pay off.
Yes, desperately. Well, it's a great show. I absolutely adore it. I'm glad that found the input. It's inexplicable to me why I stopped watching
I
this
don't know either.
a third of the way through this season, but I did for some reason, and I'm so glad to have gotten back to it because man, I love it. And I will definitely this will definitely be a show that I watch the entire thing all the way through again at some point in the
Yes,
future.
I totally
And
agree.
and I don't do that with a lot of shows. So, all right. Well, we will leave it there. When we come back, we are going to be sharing some restaurant stories of our own. So stay with us. Don't miss the Team Bus, our weekly podcast about pro cycling, and oh, did I mention pro cycling? We're kind of obsessed. Dropping into your usual podcast feeds every Wednesday. All right, we are back and we are going to share some restaurant stories from our own personal experiences to go along with our discussion about this wonderful restaurant-based show. Justin, kick us off.
So I have three actually. I thought of another.
Five, no, 9, 12.
No, I thought of another one. Three. One, two of them are from the beginning of my restaurant career, and one is from the end. The first is actually my first day ever in a restaurant. Okay. The first job I ever got, you actually helped me get because both you and Andy had worked at BJ Pumpernickel's, and I was 15, and you guys got me a job at Pumpernickel's, and so I go in for my first day, and the very first day, I had to help Barry Schwartz clean out the walk-in freezer
Legend.
in the back. And, Barry Schwartz was more of a point and shoot type person. He was like, point and you go do the thing that I'm pointing at. So I spend, I don't know, 5 hours with this guy. Gruff as hell. If you knew Barry Schwartz, he was a very opinionated person, but he was just
Well,
very,
and he was also large and intimidating. He was like a
yes.
big burly guy and yeah, exactly. Opinionated, no bullshit kind of a guy, largely humorless, very often in a
Until
bad
you got to
mood.
know him. Until you
Yeah,
got to know
he
him.
was a cool dude if you got to know him, but
Yes.
like when you first met this guy, like he came across as like all business and don't cross my path.
His nickname for me eventually became Baby Huey. Swear to God.
What a guy.
What a guy. So I spend essentially 4 hours. I've never been in a restaurant before other than to eat. I've never had a job. And of course I've been told by my dad, like, don't screw this up. Your brothers helped you get this job. And the very first day, I am like one-on-one with the owner in a freezer, and I have no choice but to just put my head down and do whatever he asks, for the next 4 hours.
Well, and you have like no expectations of this job. Like you have no idea what you're walking into. You just know that we got
Zero.
you. You're expecting to, you know, be doing something where you're processing food, and instead you are organizing a very cold and dark space.
Or bussing tables or,
Something.
I don't know. I don't know. I can't, I honest to God, I can't remember what I expected. But at the end of the day, or, at the end of the couple of hours, we finish up, and he looks at me and he goes, well, if you could put up with that, you'll do just fine.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that. You earned his respect right from the jump. That's like crucial.
Yeah.
Those are like 4 of the best hours you spent the whole time you were working there.
Yeah. And then needless to say, those guys really let me really get a taste of everything. Cause I mean, I was the only, other than this old Jewish guy that would work on Sundays, I was the only white guy to ever work in the kitchen. They eventually, I started out as a busboy, and then I was a food runner and an expediter.
Was it blacks or Hispanics or what? Who was
Hispanics.
working in the kitchen? Really, back then?
and they let me. I actually cook. I ended up cooking on the line a couple days a week. I cooked in the back. I worked the
Yeah, you got real experience there.
I worked the deli. I did everything. I mean, I really, literally did everything but wait tables there.
Yeah, I often look back and just am so thankful that that was the first place that I ever had to work because or the first restaurant I ever worked in, just because it was such a unique place in so many ways,
Hmm.
and yet so representative of like a comparatively large scale restaurant operation.
Well,
You know
yeah.
what I
I
mean?
mean, I got
Like
to
they had a full dining room and carry out, but they also operated that deli, which was like a
and a
full
catering
blown
business
full service deli that did catering and all that
and
kind
a
of stuff. Yeah. So
full service
yeah,
catering
yeah,
business.
they were cranking
You
out
know,
catering platters. Like there was an entire part of the business,
well,
and the fact that it of all the cuisines out there, it was sit down Jewish style or kosher style delicatessen.
yeah.
Uh, you don't run into a lot of those out there. And so I got this firsthand experience with this very idiosyncratic cuisine that you know lots of people know nothing about.
Hmm.
Even culturally astute, you know, foodies know nothing about a lot of this different kind of food. And so in a
Yeah, you
way,
could be like,
it
you want
gave
some
me
kasha varnishkas, and they'd be like, what?
yeah, some stuffed derma, some
Yeah, yeah.
gefilte fish. Um, and it gave me, for one thing, anytime I bring it up with like older Jewish folks that are have been in restaurants or whatever, they love it because they know all that stuff. They're like, "Oh my God, you know about that stuff?
Hmm.
Matzo ball soup and baked brie and like all the, like that that whole world is it's just cool to have that stuff in my head."
And they were like super good to me. Like they were very, very good to me. And like, they taught that, I ended up being, they would let me deliver platters. I would make, hella cash tips when I
Did you
delivered.
ever get to go to the grease bands thing?
No, but I mean, Barry and I would do like smaller catering jobs. He would take me along to do smaller catering jobs a
Yeah, I
lot.
remember that.
To the point, I mean, even to the point where like there were times when I went out, I literally would take the box truck myself and go and do a catering job, by myself. I did a couple in Brookville, like smaller ones that I had done,
Where like you'd roll in and set up a bunch of chafing dishes and
all that. Yeah.
get all
Well,
that gone and
I would tell like I'd have a
you weren't
I'd
like
have a
serving.
I had a
You were like
server with
just
I had a
setting it up.
server with me, but yeah, I would
Right.
I would get everything,
Getting all the food going,
yeah,
pulling it out of the hot boxes and popping it on top of the
yeah.
stoves and all that shit.
But I did. Those guys were just, they were always really, really good to me. Great, great dudes. Oh man, you know what? There is one other Barry Schwartz story now that I'm like thinking about BJ Pumpernickels, and it really has a place in today, with what's going on in our country today. There was this one day I can remember. So they had these $5 sub specials. All right. So for $5, you got like a nice like 8 or 9 inch sub, fries, and a drink for like $5. Or
Lord.
maybe it might even been like $2.99
Wow.
at one point, but it's a really good deal. And it was super popular. They had like 5 or 6 different ones every day. The menu rotated, and they were like, just they sold a shit ton of them, a lot of takeout. So the one day I was, I wasn't in the, no, I was in the deli, and somebody had ordered one of these sub specials, and the guy was like complaining in the lobby. And when you walked in, you walked into the deli, so it was like walking into like a 3 counter deli. And then you'd go into the restaurant off to the right,
Mm-hmm.
and this guy is like having a conniption fit to the cashier. And he's like, "You did this on purpose. You did this on purpose." And Barry used to sit at the first table right there. That was like his spot. He would sit at that
Yeah.
first table
Mm-hmm.
until it was super busy, and then he'd get up and he'd let people sit there. But if it wasn't busy, that was his like office.
Yeah.
So he gets up and he walks behind the counter, and he sees this guy going irate, and he says, "Sir," and he when he dealt with like this guy was a gruff and grumble, but when he dealt with customers, utterly professional.
Yeah, he knew how to be. He knew
Like,
how to be gentle.
yes. And he walks up and he goes, sir, I'm the owner. What seems to be the problem? And the guy's like, I ordered this sub special and I'm Muslim and they put ham on it and you guys did this on purpose. And he was like, um, and the guy's just like going on and on. He's like, you can just tell, you can see the wheels turning in Barry's head. And he turns to me. I'm like off to the right a little bit from where he is. And he goes, baby Huey, go in the back, get Amadou. Right. And I was like, okay. So I go in the back and I grab this guy that worked there that was like the jack of all trades, Barry's like right hand, this guy, Amadou Ba. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, we'll come back. I go, Amadou, Barry needs you. And I was like, come with me. And so I walk Amadou back to the deli and he walks out and Barry sees him and he goes, Amadou, come here. He's like, come here. And he puts his arm around Amadou and he says, sir, I'd like to introduce you to Amadou Ba. All right. Amadou is a Muslim. Amadou, have I ever discriminated against you ever in your life? And he goes, no, sir. And he turns to the other guy and he goes, get the fuck out of my restaurant.
Nice.
He goes, I don't need your fucking business. Get the fuck out of my restaurant.
That Jew showed that Muslim.
Yeah. So, but they took care, like if you work for them, they took care of you. They were just, man, they were good fucking people, man.
Yeah, they were good guys. They were good guys. I like those dudes.
And then the other, one that comes to, and I'll just do one more and I'll be done. But the other one is when I was on my winter break from culinary school, my big brother got me a job working at Cafe Deluxe in Bethesda. And I was doing essentially like prep work, a little bit of line work. But just
were you working for Chef Alan Adenon?
Yes, I was working for Chef Alan. So, I picked up, a dozen shifts or whatever it was over the course of, the 2 or 3 weeks that I was home. And in that cycle, one night, the other Cafe Deluxe in DC got into a pickle where I don't know if their dishwasher walked out or no-showed or whatever it was, but they didn't have a dishwasher. And so they needed somebody from Bethesda to come and wash dishes. And my brother, being a manager at the store, got me volunteered. And so I hoofed it, I got in my Geo Prism and hoofed it down to DC and, found a parking spot and, figured my way into the restaurant. And I walk in to the biggest pile of dishes, the most absolutely just soul crushing amount of dishes that I've ever seen in my entire life. And you worked this restaurant for a long time, so you know exactly how small that dish rack is. I mean, it is a tight space. And I'm telling you that literally every single inch of it was covered and then stacked on another layer on top of it. I mean, there was so many dishes that it wasn't even funny. And, I could just remember walking in and being like in the same position that I was that first day at BJ Pumpernickel's, where I was like, fuck, I can't let this place down. And I just, got in the slop and just washed dishes for the next 4 or 5 straight hours. So it was.
I have on a couple of occasions in my restaurant career as a manager found myself waist deep in dishes in the dish pit and like nobody else there, nobody available. Somebody's got to do this, and I'm the only one that is not already occupied with some other facet of a restaurant work.
So
yeah,
those are there's 3 little quick hitters. What do you got?
That dish pit there at Cafe Deluxe in DC, I got a great story about this guy Gamal that worked there, that I've told many times. I'm sure you've heard it, but that dude Gamal, he could run that dish pit better by himself than any combination of any of our other dishwashers. There was not two other dishwashers that we had working there that could run that thing on a Friday or Saturday night as well as he could do it by himself.
You know, it happens when you get into a groove, man.
Yeah, you would the rare night would happen where he was not available on a Friday or Saturday. He had to have off for some reason, and we would always bring two of the other guys in, and it was inevitably a disaster, like every time. Um,
That's not surprising. I don't know why that's just not surprising to me at all.
yeah, I'm going to tell you quickly about a couple of experiences that I had in the past. One that where I was the recipient, and one where I was the provider. Uh, on the recipient end, one of the earliest times I can remember going to a really nice restaurant, like as an adult, not as a kid, but as an adult. I took someone, I don't remember who it was, one of my ex-girlfriends, um, but post high school, uh, to the inn at Little Washington in Washington, Virginia. I remember we went out there like on a Tuesday afternoon or a Tuesday evening or something like that. It was some night earlier in the week, wasn't a big Friday or Saturday, anything like that. We didn't we didn't have the $450 at the time to throw down for a room at the inn as well. So we just booked a dinner. Um, and had never really eaten in a really high end, like fancy fine dining restaurant. So I remember we get seated. We're seated in some like little out of the way dining room off to the side or something like that, 8 or 10 tables in it. And, there's only one other couple in the room with us. And the waiter comes up and, gets things started. And he says, "Oh, the sommelier will be along momentarily to help you out with a wine choice." Right. And so a couple
Is
minutes
this your
later,
first
up.
experience with the sommelier, by the way?
Um, Possibly. I may have known what a sommelier was at the time. I want to say that I went there like after I was out of college, like
With mom and
when,
dad or something?
no, not, it wasn't with mom and dad. I like had a date with me, but it was like early on, maybe when I was still living at mom and dad's house or when I'd first moved to DC or something like that. Somebody along somewhere along those lines. Um, But the sommelier comes walking up, and lo and behold, it's a guy I know. It's Andy Myers. I guess our brother Andy must know him. He had a brother. I think his brother Doug was my age, and Andy was Andy's age. Our brother Andy's age. And I knew these guys from around school, and I think we were like speculating that like there was some other tie-in, like we knew him from the pool or from the Indian guides or from the sports leagues or
But
something
they were
besides
Alney
school.
people.
Yeah, they were like, and not just Alney, but like they were in Tantera or something like, or no, I think they lived over on like, yeah, like on Tantera, like really close to Georgia Avenue, like
Hmm.
Heritage Hills, like where we would exit our neighborhood out that way. They live like down there. And so I see this guy. I'm like, holy crap. Like, I come all the way out to Washington, Virginia, an hour and a half outside of DC to go to some fancy restaurant. Lo and behold, I know the sommelier. And he was, I think, working on his sommelier thing. He was like an assistant or something, but he was the guy on Tuesday night. Since it wasn't a busy night, he was uh he was the one working the floor that night. And as a result of knowing him and the fact that it was a Tuesday night and there wasn't a whole lot going on, this guy was able to give us a full tour of this restaurant. They had just renovated it. They had opened up the kitchen. It was brand new. Everything in there was brand new. We got to walk around, see everything, comprehensive look at the nuts and bolts of this restaurant, front and back of house. And then he took us out the back door of the building, down the street, hooked a left, went halfway down the block to the garage of the owners of the restaurant's house. So it's a little quaint, picturesque, like small colonial town, Washington, Virginia, and the owners of this restaurant that's like, in an old barn or something like, or some other old building, they live in a house that's like a block and a half away from the restaurant, and the house has got a detached two-car garage which they have converted into a wine cellar. So all of the wine that's stored for this like Michelin starred restaurant is in this garage, because they don't have the space in the other old building. And on busy nights, they hire out somebody that's part of the wine team that's basically running back and forth between the wine cellar and the restaurant all night grabbing bottles.
Which is crazy. But
Yeah, yeah. I remember him showing me something really cool in that wine cellar that night too, something I did not know about, which is that um old school like first growth Bordeaux wines and stuff like that. If you have let's say you've got a bottle of, 1975 Chateau Petrus Pomerol, and you look at it and you see that a certain quantity of that wine has evaporated out of that bottle. You know what I mean? Because
mhm.
wine will evaporate over years and years if it's just left to sit there and age. The overall volume will decrease over time via microscopic evaporation through the cork. Um, it is customary for some of the, more prestigious and older wineries in France that if you have an old bottle, if you take that bottle of 1975 Petrus Pomerol to the Petrus estate, you can go in, have it opened up and topped off with 1975 Petrus from their collection. That is a thing.
That's
And
crazy.
when they do that, they remove the foil from the top of your original bottle and then they put a new cork in there. And the new cork has got special writing on the side that you can see to show that it's been officially topped off and when it was done or whatever. And they had a bottle of that kind of wine in that wine cellar at the inn at Little Washington. He showed it to me. He told me the whole story and he showed me. He's like, see the cork here? See how they've taken the foil off? This bottle's been topped off at the winery.
So somebody
Really,
bought that wine, stored it for 20
yeah.
years, 30 years, took it back to France to the actual winery, the actual estate, and
I mean,
they
it's entirely possible that that bottle was sitting in a wine cellar 1 mile down the road from Chateau Petrus Pomerol for 25 years, and somebody said, "Let me get this topped off," and then they sold it after it had been
do
topped
you
off. So
think that it
I don't know
do
what
you
the
think it would
or
like I don't know, I guess it wouldn't add value to it, but it also would feel I feel like it would make it almost feel like more rare.
yeah, yeah, it's almost more collectible in a way. Yeah,
Yeah.
because a lot of times stuff like that is being collected for the stories, anyways.
Right.
A lot of that wine is no good. So it's yeah, it was an interesting tale, but yeah, just a really, really
What
cool
if that wine
experience.
had been corked? That's an interesting question.
I know. How about introducing the oxidation? Because like I would feel like it would oxidize. It would oxidize. They must have a method of doing it where like they immediately cover it, like they pull the cork and immediately cover it, and probably have some kind of mechanism to
Yeah.
top it off without allowing any air down into there. And then it gets immediately recorked, and there must be something to it. Something that would be interesting to look into.
Yeah.
Um, so that was the first story, and the other one is about a birthday dinner that I created for Mandy when I worked at at the restaurant where we worked together at Jackson's in Pensacola, Florida, where we met and where we fell in love. And she celebrated a birthday one time while we were working there, and I wanted to do something special for her. So um, this was kind of before tasting menus started taking over the culinary
Mhm.
scene, slightly before. Um, I'd heard of tasting menus. I don't know that I'd ever done one, but I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could create a tasting menu for Mandy for a meal? I could do it here at the restaurant. I'll work with the chef to make it happen. So I ran it up the flagpole and everybody seemed amenable. And so I created a dinner for 6 people, um, in which we took menu items from the restaurant and then kind of deconstructed and reconstructed them to work in a tasting format, so that each course was plated up individually for each person, tasting menu style. And uh, they, they were we reportioned things. So for example, if we had a crab cake appetizer and each person was getting a single bite of a mini crab cake, we might order up 2 crab cakes and then the
deconstruct
chef would,
that
yeah,
into the
the
yeah.
chef would take all of that crab cake meat material and rework it into individual dishes, which they were plated up very artfully. They did an amazing job with all of the presentations. It was cool for the chef because he got a chance to kind of stretch his own creativity a little bit. And then after I had the menu set, and it was like 10 courses, we did a whole bunch of stuff. After I had the menu set, I got together with one of the waiters who was going to wait on the table, and we literally spent several hours one afternoon like rehearsing everything that was going to be said as we presented each of these dishes. And if memory serves, we even had like a little bit of shtick worked into it. I'd have to think really hard, but like there was something there was some kind of surprise at the end of the meal where he said something and then I said something back, and like we played it off to look spontaneous, but we had actually planned it out in advance. I got to think about that. Mandy might remember, because I feel like that used to be a detail of this story when I would tell it, and I don't seem to recall it any longer. Um, Nonetheless, it was a really cool event. I printed up individual like minimalistic menus for this dinner, and it was just such a fun way to sort of take a fresh spin on all this stuff that we were also used to. The other guests on the table were Pat and Scotty and their significant others, who were two of the waiters at the restaurant, so we all knew each other. But super fun time. The guy Thomas that was the waiter was like just one of the all-time kings, like one of the best waiters I've ever known, and just had so much personality and just brought another just amazing element to the whole thing. So went off without a hitch and was uh, was well received.
That's
And I want
awesome.
to get up in the attic and see if I can't uncover a one of the old menus or something. I bet you I hung on to it. It might be in a box upstairs or something. So those are my stories.
That's awesome.
And I guess we should say that at this point yesterday, when we were recording our ill-fated podcast that was lost to the sands of time, um, we sort of naturally, spontaneously rolled into our reminiscences of a story from our past, a dinner party that you and I sort of um, had a hand in putting on for our mom and dad out at their house a few years back, when they still lived in Brookville at Van Dever Street. Um, and we have since decided that it's such a good story and it was so fun doing it that if we're gonna go through it again, we're gonna pull our mom into it and have her sit down with us, and then we'll go through the story again and be able to get the input from her. Because what was so fun about our conversation yesterday was us getting to learn little tidbits about the story that we have not known all these years,
Yeah.
because I've been telling this story for years and years and years. I got it dialed in, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that I talk about in my version that you were unaware of. And I believe you had a few little insights for me as
What
well.
what do you think that do you think that, have you do you think there's any chance we could track Monty down?
I seriously doubt it. I don't know. I don't even know if the guy's still alive.
Hey man, social media is a crazy thing.
It is. Let me Google his name and see what comes up. Doing it right now.
I mean, that would be the ultimate. If we could somehow get Mom and Monty on the same one, we could zoom him in.
All I'm getting is kitchen supply shops, because his name is Montgomery Sinks, Sinks.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to see what we can do.
Here's a guy on Facebook, but that's definitely not him.
Well,
Um, yeah, but for sure, doing it with mom would be super fun. So we're gonna table that for now, but it's going to get added to the calendar in short order when we can find a time for her to come over on a Monday morning. All right. Well, thanks for joining us on this episode. Next week, we will be doing our 52nd episode of this podcast, which started with a different name, um, but is the same podcast. Completing our first year here at Beyond the Slipstream, and looking forward to getting into year two with you. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Ale.
Beyond the Slipstream is a companion to the Team Bus and is produced by Harperama. Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Please like, subscribe, leave a review, and tell your friends about us. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time. Ale!